This musical Sunday, our music director, Ellen Cogan, her bandmates, our choir, and you will be rocking the house with some incredible music. The service is just packed with wonderful stuff. So I'm just going to dive right in and get started. Welcome to our service from the Unitarian Universalist Society of Northampton and Florence. I'm Elaine Apthorpe, a member of the worship committee and the welcome team and the choir. If you're new or returning after a time away, we're glad to see you. We're glad to see everybody. Please feel free to fill out a blue welcome card there in the pews, which you can put in the offering plate later in the service. There's a link to an online version in the chat if you're on Zoom. We'll put you on our email list so you can receive information about all that we do. We strive to be a congregation that welcomes people of all ages, races, religious beliefs, backgrounds, sexual orientations, gender identities, and abilities. We belong to the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, and we're guided and inspired by its values and principles. Those values and principles move us to remember that those of us in the Pioneer Valley live on unceded homeland of the Pecumtuck, Nonotuck, and Western Nipmuc peoples. We acknowledge our responsibility to confront the legacies of dispossession and systemic racism that are part of our collective history. And we affirm and celebrate the many legacies that inspire us. We have drawing materials and other ways to occupy hands on the tables in back. Restrooms are downstairs and reach through one of these doors. You can either take the stairs or the elevator and return the same way. Children are welcome to head downstairs now or stay here and enjoy the service. We're here to celebrate, to reflect, and to support one another. It's good to be together. And now we'll begin our service. Accompanying Ellen Cogan's vocals and piano this morning are guest musicians, Ted Levine on clarinet and sax, John Mason on guitar, Brandon Goulet on bass, and the salmon are going to be produced. I think he's playing bass and not a large fish. And Claire Arrhenius on drums. There will be a spiritual discussion in the parlor on the theme of interdependence right after the service, and downstairs in the kitchen, everyone is invited to help cook for the Cathedral in the Night, which is a community meal for people on the streets of Northampton. And now we'll begin our service.
I'm traveling in some vehicle. I'm sitting in some cafe, a defector from the petty wars that shell-shock love away. There's comfort in melancholy, where there's no need to explain. It's just as natural as the weather in this gloomy sky today. In our possessive coupling, so much could not be expressed. So now I am returning to myself, something that you and I suppressed. I see something of myself in everyone, right at this corner of the world. Snow gathers like bolts of flame, dancing on a ballroom rug. You know it never has been easy. Whether you do or you do not resign, whether you travel the breadth of extremities or stick to a straighter line. Now here's a man and a woman sitting on a rock. They're either gonna thaw or freeze. Listen, strains of Benny Goodman coming through the snow, the pinewood trees. I'm porous with trouble fever, but you know I'm so glad to be on my own. Somehow the slightest touch of a stranger can set a trembling in my bones. I know no one's gonna give me everything. We all come and go unknown, each so deep and superficial, between the forceps and the stone. Well, I looked at the granite markers, those tributes to finality, to eternity. And then I looked at myself here, chicken scratching for my immortality. In the church, they light the candles, and the wax falls down like tears. There's the hope and the hopelessness we've witnessed all these years. We're all particles of change, I know, traveling around the sun. But how am I supposed to have that point of view when I'm always bound and tied to someone? White flags of winter chimneys, waving truce across the moon, in the mirrors of a hotel bank, from the window of this hotel room. Traveling in some vehicle, I'm sitting in some cafe, a defector from the petty wars, till love sucks me back its way.
Joni Mitchell is the voice of woman on a deep dive into existence, who's chosen above all else an introspective life, listening to the movement of her consciousness to make art that speaks to the something of herself that is in you and I. Talking about the album Hajira in an interview for Rolling Stone, Joni said this: "I thrive on change. That's probably why my chord changes are weird, because chords depict emotions. They'll be going along on one key and I'll drop off a cliff. And suddenly they'll go into a whole other key signature. That will drive some people crazy, but that's how my life is." In Joni's music, word and sound unite to carry us along in the flight of thought, mood, and feeling as it soars, circles, swoops, and dives. The voice of a woman pour us to all feeling and experience, but never bound and tied for long, breathtakingly free to think, feel, speak, and share. Now I invite everyone to rise in body or spirit for our chalice lighting. It's number 462 in the gray hymnal and on screen. The words of the great singer and activist Paul Robeson. "I shall take my voice wherever there are those who want to hear the melody of freedom, or the words that might inspire hope and courage in the face of despair and fear. My weapons are peaceful, for it is only by peace that peace can be achieved. The song of freedom must prevail." We remain standing for our first congregational song, Joni's "The Circle Game," the lyrics to which are on the back of your order of meeting. But I expect a bunch of us here know this one by heart. All right. That's beautiful. Well done. Okay, now it's time for us to greet one another. Those of you in the Great Hall, please wave at the folks on Zoom. If you're on Zoom, you're invited to turn on your videos, wave, and say hello in the chat. It's helpful to switch to gallery view. Anyone online or here in person who's new or newish and would like to, please say hello. Tell us where you're from. It's been good to see everyone. On Zoom, please remember to turn off your personal videos. There's so much to say about Joni Mitchell's work, but I'll mention just 3 of the huge impacts she's had on music. So many voices are singing these legacies now. First, the way she matches word and sound. She does it with such grace, it just seems effortlessly natural. She takes us along to a Hollywood party and sings, "All the people at this party, they've got a lot of style." You know exactly. You know what she thinks about that style, right? You can hear it. You can hear the depression, too, at her experience in that milieu. At the end of the song, she says, "Oh, I wish I had more sense of humor sometimes, keeping the sadness at bay, throwing a lightness on these things, laughing it all away, laughing it all away." And you can tell exactly how impossible it is for her to do that. Second, Joni writes as a free woman in a culture profoundly ambivalent about female independence. And she began writing in a public voice in the 60s when the women's movement, the second wave of the women's movement, was really just getting going. And it was really hard to be a woman in rock and roll. But she did it. And the token of her freedom for me is the fearlessness with which she explores her own human complexity, probing the thirst for transcendence and the hunger of desire. She's able to wonder in one breath, maybe I've never really loved. I guess that is the truth. I've spent my whole life in clouds at icy altitudes. She can say that in one breath. And then in another, she can note, as in Hajara, the way love sucks me back into the vulnerability of immersion in relationship. And finally, the intimacy with which her songs register the nuance and flow of consciousness and mood with such startling power and convey the universal in the particular. It's like a letter to the world, as Emily Dickinson would say. that makes us long to write back. Me too. 3 songs that we're singing together this morning, Circle Game, Big Yellow Taxi, and Both Sides Now. In those songs, she aims very pointedly at the universal in her particular. But nearly every Joni Mitchell song is a specific experience from a personal point of view. There's nothing generic about anything she does. And the raw honesty and elegance with which she tells her experience brings us with her into communion in that moment. When she tells of a relationship on the rocks, she gives us an utterly specific scene, brings us into it, just like we were sitting on the bar stool across from hers. Just before our love got lost, you said, I am as constant as a northern star. And I said, constantly in the darkness, where's that at? You want me, I'll be in the bar. On the back of a cartoon coaster, in the blue TV screen light, I drew a map of Canada. Oh, Canada, ooh, with your face sketched on it twice. Oh, you're in my blood like holy wine. You taste so bitter and so sweet. Oh, I could drink a case of you, darling, and I would still be on my feet. I would still be on my feet. And you can hear it, right? You can, in this time when she repeats it, you're hearing how solidly she is on her feet. Let's drink a case of Joni's work together and revel on our feet.
Thank you so much, Elaine, for those words and for all of your help putting the service together. I also thank Sarah Metcalf, who you get to hear later, who has helped so much put this service together. Here's one of a couple of songs we're doing today about Joni encountering a musician on the street, or a person on the street, I should say. You should follow me. That means over there on the other side. Thanks. Play if you have One man bent by the quick lunch stand. He was playing real good for free. Nobody stopped to hear him, though he played so sweet and high. They knew he had never been on their TV, so they passed his music by.
That was magnificent. Thank you so much. Our generosity makes everything we do here possible, and it helps us support organizations and movements in the greater community. Half of the proceeds of each week's offering support the Society's operating budget, and the other half are shared outside our walls. You can mail in a check, donate online, or put your contribution in one of the plates that the ushers will pass. The offering will now be given and very gratefully received.
Come to the dinner gone, the table is laid in high, fat bellies and hungry little ones, tuck your napkins in and take your share. Some get the gravy in, some get the gristle, some get the marrow bone, some get nothing, though there's plenty to share. I took my share down by the sea, paper plates and Jarvex bottles on the tide. Seagulls come down and they squawk at me, down where the water skiers glide. Some turn to Jesus, some turn to heroin, some turn to rambling round, looking for a clean sky and a drinking stream. Some watch the paint peel off, some watch their kids grow up, some watch their stocks and bonds, waiting for that big deal American dream. I took my team down by the sea, Yankee yachts and lobster pots and sunshine and logs and sails and shell oil fields, dogs and tugs and summertime. in the banquet line, angry young people crying. Who let the greedy in? Who left the needy out? Who made the salty soup? Tell them we're very hungry now for a sweeter fare. In the cookie I read, some get the gravy and some get the gristle, some get the marrow bone, and some get nothing, though there's plenty to spare.
And now, choir and the band will lead us in Big Yellow Taxi. And now Sarah Metcalf with our second reflection.
I want to thank Ellen for inviting me to talk about Joni Mitchell today. We recognized in each other a long time ago a shared dazzlement before Joni's work. I remember in particular hearing Ellen sing in this room the song Shades of Scarlet Conquering from Joni's album The Hissing of Summer Lawns, an extraordinary portrait, not of the heroine of Gone with the Wind, but of a woman trapped in a restless, ruthless dissatisfaction rooted in romantic fantasy.
Unlike Elaine, I do not have the courage to sing these lines. Dressed in stolen clothes, she stands, cast iron and frail, with her impossibly gentle hands and her blood-red fingernails. It's not one of Joni's mainstream songs, most of which date from her early career, but it's one of her finest. I was thrilled Ellen had looked so deeply into Joni's oeuvre. I consider Joni Mitchell to be not only one of the greatest songwriters of our time, but one of the greatest artists. Her achievement is one of superb musical compositions, arrangements, lyrics, and vocal performance, all combined. All original and influential. Her work occupies for me a place near that of Alice Munro, another Canadian, whom I regard as the greatest living writer of fiction in English, or of Emily Dickinson. They too are women who weigh every startling, unflinching word they choose, who look into every corner of human experience with the unique power of a distinctively female sensibility. But unlike them, Joni has the arrow of music in her quiver, the immediacy of performance. This is perhaps why we refer to her as Joni, where we're much less likely to be so familiar with Emily or Alice. It's a mystery how people with such extraordinary abilities appear among us. It's clear from biographies or interviews of Joni that she recognized her own powers very early. She was born Roberta Joan Anderson to unremarkable parents, her mother a school teacher, her father a grocer, and grew up in small towns in Saskatchewan. At age 3, she recalls critically assessing her parents as limited in their ability to understand or protect her. She was similarly unimpressed with her teachers, both in school and at church, where she wanted to know who Cain, the son of Adam and Eve, had married, his own mother? Because who else was there? This question ended Joni's attendance at Sunday school. At 9, she was stricken with polio and spent 3 months quarantined in a regional hospital where her mother visited her once and her father not at all. Reading about this, I remembered the writer Angus Wilson visiting the Iowa Writers' Workshop when I was a student there, being asked what conditions formed a writer. He said, well, a lonely childhood, and particularly a serious illness, do well to turn a child into a wise owl. After the polio, Joni had to relearn how to walk, which further developed her precocious self-reliance. But her left hand remained weak, which later forced her notable, unique guitar tunings. Joni went on to a wild adolescence, but along the way she had an inspiring English teacher who graded her more harshly than he did her classmates, because, he told her, she was more capable. Anytime she looked over her work and found a cliché there, he said she should replace it with something original. She said she continued to do that for the rest of her life. She also had piano lessons and taught herself to play the ukulele and later the guitar, using lessons written by Pete Seeger. But folk music was never her passion. She liked jazz, and her favorite record was by Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross. She went to art school, but not for long. She dropped out to sing covers of folk songs in coffee houses and at festivals, and as she tells it, stupidly became pregnant by her first boyfriend, who shortly abandoned her. It was 1965, and unwed motherhood was a disgrace she had to hide from her parents. Too poor to support a child, she relinquished her baby girl to foster care. Soon after that, she married a fellow musician, Chuck Mitchell, in part hoping to reclaim her. But Mitchell and others discouraged her from that, saying she ought to focus on her music, and she made the difficult decision to release her baby for adoption. It was then, she later said, that she began to write her own songs as a means of dealing with her decision, or perhaps justifying it. They poured out of her, and as soon she'd accumulated a large catalog comprising much of the material of her first 3 albums. The great tension of her life, as she would put it later, between my struggle for higher achievement and my search for love that don't seem to cease, had taken root. She moved with Mitchell to Detroit, quickly eclipsed and divorced him, and went to New York to build her career. So these are the clues biography offers as to the origins of her creativity. She went on to quickly gain a following, see her earliest songs covered by singers who were already famous, then land her own recording contracts, release album after album, win Grammy Awards, have famous and infamous love affairs, and musical collaborations ranging from Dylan to Mingus, and make a lot of money and quit this crazy scene. Retiring periodically to her solitary stone house in British Columbia, or alternatively to the refuge of the roads. Joni is much celebrated now as she's re-emerged from a nearly fatal stroke to sit regally on stools beside Brandi Carlile and artfully reinterpret the soprano songs of her youth through the darkened low alto instrument that remains to her now that she's 80 years old. Through much of her career, though, she's felt under-recognized. As she puts it, I'm a fine artist working in a commercial medium, so that's my cross to bear. Comparing herself to Bob Dylan, whose narrative freedom she found inspiring, she cites the lyric, "You've got a lot of nerve to say you are my friend." She said, with Dylan, you could speak in paragraphs, but it was from the sacrifice of music. Her role, she felt, was to claim the lyrical directness, but also preserve melodic and harmonic sophistication. She was also pigeonholed as a folk singer or as a confessional one. I remember my brother, a music critic, telling me sometime around when Hejera was released, "Sarah, Joni speaks to women." And of course she did and does. This isn't a deficit. I think of the lyrics, "Don't interrupt the sorrow," from The Hissing of Summer Lawns. Don't interrupt the sorrow, darn right. In flames are prophet witches, be polite. A room full of glasses, he says, "Your notches, liberation doll," and he chains me with that serpent to that Ethiopian wall. Truth goes up in vapors, the steeples lean. Winds of change, patriarchs, snug in your Bible Belt dreams. God goes up the chimney like childhood Santa Claus. The good slaves love the good book. A rebel loves a cause. Or I think of Song for Sharon, perhaps my favorite of all her songs, addressed to a childhood friend now married with children. She sings of her perpetual romantic disappointment, her childhood illusions about the ceremony of the bells and lace, her friend who recently drowned herself. The song ends, "Now there are 49 skaters on Woolman Rink, circling in singles and in pairs. In this vigorous anonymity, a blank face at the window stares and stares and stares and stares. And the power of reason and the flowers of deep feeling seem to serve me only to deceive me." Sharon, you've got a husband and a family and a farm. I've got the apple of temptation and a diamond snake around my arm. But you still have your music. I've still got my eyes on the land and the sky. You sing for your friends and your family. I'll walk green pastures by and by. The term confessional is a patronizing one. It implies artlessness or triviality. But Joni is never artless, and her subject, how as a woman to live an authentic, ambitious, creative life, is not trivial. It's a difficult, though not impossible, thing to define what great art is. But here's a test I find myself applying these days. It's the thing that, no matter what happens, never stands revealed as shallow or meaningless or false. It remains beautiful. It remains a joy.
Ah, so beautiful. Thank you, Sarah. All right, now we're going to sing together another wonderful song of Joni's. Both sides now, I think. Sorry about that. You can contemplate and get ready for that while we hear Ellen and band play Chord and Spark.
Love came to my home, a sleeping road, in a madman's soul. Thought for sure I'd seen him dancing up the river in the dark, looking for a woman to call and inspire. He was playing on the sidewalk, a passing change, something strange. Glory train passed through. So he buried the coins he made in the people's park. Went looking for a woman to call and inspire. Saw me mistrusting him, but still acting kind. So I worry sometimes. I worry sometimes. Sacrifice my blues, and you can complete me. I complete you. His eyes were the color, the sand of the sea. The more he talked to me, the more he reached me. But I couldn't let go of LA, city of the falling angels. That's me. So I just wanted to say a couple of things about Joni's compositional style. And I'm doing this before this song, Judgment of the Moon and Stars, which does happen to be one of my favorite Joni Mitchell songs because it speaks to me. Of course, they all do in different ways. Part of the reason that it speaks to me is because of some of the lyrics at the end. This is a song that she wrote to Beethoven, but when you really examine it, you can tell that she's really writing it to herself, another misunderstood genius. But she talks about when Beethoven was losing his hearing in the lyrics. And some of her favorite lyrics are at the end of this song. I just want to, you know what, I'm going to get back to that because I also want to talk about her compositional style just a little bit. So the lyrics that I'm going to mention in a minute have the words, strike every chord you feel. This is how she composed. She would have a feeling in her mind, and she would sit at the piano or the guitar and just play notes until it matched her emotion, which makes complete sense. And her chords are not all like this, right? A few of her pop tunes tend to be a little bit more folky, 1-4-5-1, but mostly they're this dreamy, right? This kind of thing, which matches her predilection for being a journeyer, a voyager, not settling down anywhere. She doesn't settle down in her music either a lot of the time, and you can see it in this. I'm looking at some of these chords. She chooses chords that are very stable, and then she moves to another very stable chord. What does that mean? Instead of going, right? Where you kind of know where it's going to go. She'll strike one chord that she feels, and then she'll move to another chord she feels, whether or not they relate in the theoretical sense. So theory teachers might go a little crazy. I was a theory major as an undergrad, and besides being just a theory geek, I'm mostly fascinated by the reason that we respond to certain harmonic progressions and melodies. In her music, she uses a lot of polychords, which are two chords playing at the same time. Or chords over other chords. These are all from this song. She plays a lot of minor seventh chords. They don't need to go anywhere. They're stable as they are, but they also have that nice moody feel. One of my favorite kinds of chords. Minor seventh chords. But the lyrics that I wanted to reference, let's see. Where shall we go from? Well, it's kind of a pep talk to Beethoven, or a pep talk to her, or we can take it maybe as a pep talk. You got to shake your fists at lightning now. You got to roar like forest fire. You got to spread your light like blazes all across the sky. They're going to aim their hoses on you. Show them you won't expire. Not till you burn up every passion, not even when you die. Come on now, you got to try. If you're feeling contempt, well, then you tell it. If you're tired of the silent night, Jesus, then you yell it. This is my favorite part. Condemned to wires and hammers, this, strike every chord that you feel, that broken trees and elephant ivories conceal. So this is Judgment of the Moon and the Stars, also known as Ludwig's tune. might as well be mute. So you get to keep the pictures that don't seem like much. Cold white keys under your fingers. Now you're thinking that's no substitute. It just don't do it like the song of a warm, warm body, love in your touch. In the chord they carve your legend with an apple in its jaw. And the women that you wanted, they get their laughs. Long silk stockings on the bedpost of refinement. You're too raw. They think you're too raw. It's the judgment of the moon and stars. Your solitary path. Draw yourself a bath. Think what you'd like to have for supper. Or take a walk, a park, a bridge, a tree, a river. Revoked but not yet cancelled. The gift goes on in silence in a bell jar, still a song. You gotta roar like forest fire. You gotta spread your light like blazes all across the sky. They're gonna aim the hoses on ya. Show 'em you won't expire. Not till you burn up every passion. Not even when you die. Come on now. You gotta try. If you're feeling contempt, well then you tell it. If you're tired of the silent night, well Jesus, then you gotta yell it. Contempt to wires and hammers, strike every chord that you feel. That broken tree, elephants, ivories concealed.
Now we'll do the congregational song. Both sides now. Again, words are any other meeting. Joni's work is always both sides and always now. An ongoing conversation, the electric longing for touch, the urge for going, the immanence of the body and transcendence of consciousness, the cost and the necessity of freedom. Just one woman on the road, one black crow, diving again and again, deep into the landscape of being. Go forth and fly. Be at peace, create peace, go in peace.
black as the highway that's leading me. Now he's stopping down to pick up on something shiny. I'm like that black road high in a blue sky. Took a ferry to a highway, then I drove to a pontoon plane. Took a plane to a taxi and a taxi to a train. I've been traveling so long, how am I ever gonna know my home when I see it again? I'm like that black road high in a blue sky. Being up all night, I looked at my haggard face in the bathroom light. I looked out the window and I saw that ragged soul take flight. I'm like that black road flying in a blue sky. Looked out the window after being up all night. I looked at my haggard face in the bathroom light. I looked out the window and I saw